Freddie, come on, wake up. Freddie, come on, please. Freddie!
We Are Zombies is a 2023 horror comedy from much of the creative team behind the movie Turbo Kid, which is a movie I absolutely loved. They also did Summer of '84, which is also somewhat of a well-regarded movie. So here we are with a zombie movie with a little bit of a difference here. So their setup is there is a world where zombies exist. For some reason, the dead have returned to life, but they are not flesh-eating monsters. They are decomposing and look like your traditional zombies, but they have no desire to eat flesh, or brains do not really attack people. Instead, they are treated more like people who are mentally handicapped. It somewhat depends on the method of death. If the brain is intact once they died, they pretty much retain their humanity. If the brain is in a state of decay or it's damaged, then they are left kind of impaired, as they are called in this movie. So this world, they're treated kind of like second-class citizens to a large degree. And there's lots of metaphors likening them to, for example, immigrants, or having to deal with the elderly, or having to deal with, obviously, handicapped people and the pressure that it puts on society and prejudices that people might have with that. The movie follows a trio of kind of slackers who effectively kind of sell zombies to different people, I guess, for reasons. And there is a corporation that does zombie removals and kind of, I guess, euthanizes them or uses them for kind of like research and stuff like that. Anyway, our trio of protagonists, one of their grandmas is kidnapped, and they are effectively coerced into raising some money. So they agree to kidnap a celebrity zombie. At the same time, we have this corporation who want to change the kind of the conversation, so to speak, around zombies. So they have concocted a formula which effectively turns zombies violent, and kind of they want to change the perception of zombies to the public. So they are planning to kind of release that kind of gas which will turn zombies violent and then spread this infection. So they are able to kind of clean it up and change the kind of the conversation to a negative connotation about zombies. Sounds convoluted? It is a little bit, to be honest, but that is your setup. So what do we think? So, as I say, there's much of what you enjoyed about Turbo Kid is present with this movie. The soundtrack is kind of quite similar, a kind of synthy techno soundtrack, which I quite enjoyed. Some of the kind of the goofy humour is here. A lot of the kind of the over-the-top but fun gore is here. The last act of the movie, where the zombies effectively turn into your traditional killing style zombies. There's lots of bites and decapitations and things like that. Maybe not as much as some zombie films, as they don't really turn violent until towards the end, but there still is a reasonable amount of, gory kind of shots, but it is done in a kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of fashion. And obviously, I think the most interesting thing for me about this film is the sort of different style of zombie movie that it is, at least initially. Where we are treating these zombies like a sort of second-class citizen, but not really like a danger. And that, I think, made for a different type of originality in the zombie film, and obviously gives the filmmakers here a chance to use them as metaphors for various kind of issues that we face in our kind of society today. So that at least gave this movie some originality. It's quite fun, and there are sort of little nuggets here. For example, there's a zombie kind of live sex chat girl for people who have got like a zombie fetish and things like that. There's a kind of a few little nuggets that I think, you know, a little of interest, if that makes sense. The zombie lore I think is interesting, you know, dependent on how they've died and what the effect the brain is in, it can change how the zombies are and stuff. So there's a reasonable amount. There's a couple of funny gags here and there. But to be honest, I think the movie as a whole is lacking, if I'm completely honest with you. I think the conception here of this idea about these zombies being metaphors and sort of treated as second-class citizens is an interesting one, but it's not really the focus of the film, at least as the film goes on. So I think they kind of lose that little bit of originality that they kind of started with. By far, for me at least, the thing I liked least about this movie is its very broad and basic humour. Some jokes hit, right, but not many, if I'm honest. For me, the most egregious example of this is our three leads, our three protagonists. We have our main guy, who is this kind of nerdy guy who's got obsessed with this zombie sex chat girl. You know, it's your classic sort of underdog, little weedy guy, come good. His friend, who is this bigger guy, who is possibly the most annoying character ever put to screen, and he's treated in a way that he's so dumb, you know, he just simply is too dumb to exist in any kind of real world, and his character is so misguided and misjudged in regards to his humour. It is just annoying. And then we have the female member of this trio, who is of course the boss babe, or whatever you want to call. And they're just not A, interesting, or B, likeable characters. So I think this trio of protagonists are not particularly engaging, I have to say. And the humour here, as I say, I think most of the time is way too broad, way too silly, and just plain annoying. And then we have to talk about the actual story itself, which seems really unfocused. It doesn't really seem to have a huge kind of direction in its narrative. It just seems to be all over the place and doesn't really have a sort of singular narrative as such. Instead, it's like three different kind of B plots. We have our trio, our protagonist trying to kind of kidnap a celebrity zombie. We've got the corporation doing experiments and trying to create a narrative about the zombies, and then we have the kidnappers who have kidnapped the gran and how they are dealing with this elderly woman and their kind of shenanigans. And then we have the story, you know, just as a large, the people around it, the bit players, about how they are dealing with various kind of zombie interactions. But there's no real strong narrative through the movie. It's more little vignettes of these different kind of interactions that are strung loosely together to make this kind of somewhat convoluted story, I have to say. And then obviously, if you want more of a traditional sort of style zombie horror film, it's not really until the third act that we actually get any type of horror elements into it outside of the VFX, which I would say are good. The VFX are solid. The zombie makeup is solid. There's one kind of very elaborate looking zombie, but again, it's a relatively short segment. And you know, if you want a genuine zombie horror, you may be disappointed with that the lack of sort of violence or gore in any meaningful way in this film. So to me, this movie had some original ideas, but I found it very kind of misguided and misjudged, and quite frankly squandered the interesting elements that this movie introduced in favour of silly slapstick humour, an unengaging plot, and just quite frankly annoying characters. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10. There is some elements here that I think may be worth your time and some people may like, but for the most part, this was a little bit of a disappointment from the creators of Turbo Kid. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What were your thoughts? Please leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.